Hey there, everyone. Welcome to Utility Sports Plus. Make sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel for more great college football content like this. Austin spends so much time preparing every week, watching these games to talk about them on Sunday. So let's get to it here. James Madison at number 25, Austin. Very rare to see a team like James Madison in the top 25. Now, look, recent years, they've been a little bit better, trending upward. This year specifically, see them 7-0 in the Sun Belt Conference. Austin, your early impressions on James Madison this season?
Yeah, James Madison's been consistent. They've been great ever since making that jump from the FCS level to the FBS level. It has been game changing. They knew that they could compete at a higher level, and that's the case in point with James Madison. They have been great. I just want to highlight some of the other teams that are receiving votes here. Liberty, Florida, Kansas State, who had been a mainstay in the AP Top 25. Another team that we did notice that actually dropped out was Iowa. Iowa has had a lot of struggles offensively, and that has been highlighted throughout the entire course of the season. And it reared its ugly head against the University of Minnesota this past weekend in a narrow 10-12 loss. The most Big Ten West thing you can think of. That's exactly how that game played out. A controversial touchdown return called back due to a fair catch stipulation. So unfortunate news for Iowa Hawkeye fans.
Yeah, definitely a disappointing one there. People pointed to the questionable call there, especially on that return. But listen, if you score more than 12 points, you win that football game. That's just the reality of it. Let's jump into our 24th team here. We're looking at USC, which is actually top 25 in basketball as well. Good to see a team in both basketball and football. We have UCLA at 23. So some of the Southern Cal teams here, Austin, UCLA, USC, they're both in the top 25 here, although both of them USC trending downward a little bit. UCLA with at a 5-2 record. What's your thoughts on these two California squads?
Yeah, so I mean, going to the whole USC thing, a very disappointing loss, and seemingly they just can't beat Utah, despite Utah not having Cam Rising, and that's going to be the case actually for the rest of the season. It was just announced, but they just weren't able to get the job done. With Caleb Williams, it's been a very well documented, established idea that he's going to be the number one overall pick, regardless. He's actually shown a couple of things that have been concerning, but I still think that shouldn't be the waiver of him being the first overall pick. And I think they have to really look at themselves and figure out what's the issue here moving forward. USC is a tremendous program, a lot of talented players, but Utah seems to have their number for whatever reason, and it's been well documented the last two seasons.
Yeah, we've seen Utah knock them off now the last few years consecutively. Really great football there from them, obviously taking advantage of USC in those matchups. UCLA at 23. Let's jump into 22 now. We look at Tulane and Tennessee at 21. So two interesting teams here, one from the American Athletic Conference, one from the SEC. Of course, we see Tennessee dropping a few spots. Austin, break these two teams down.
Yeah, probably the team that I'd like to highlight a little bit more is looking at Tennessee. Tennessee played a very competitive game against Alabama. They actually scared a lot of Alabama fans right away because Tennessee jumped on them early, and then Alabama ended up pulling ahead for a 14-point victory over the Crimson Tide. So, or excuse me, over the Volunteers. So I look at this as the fact that Josh Heupel's got some work to do. I think in a very competitive SEC, they got a good team, but this isn't the same team that they had last year. A lot of NFL caliber receivers on roster with Tillman and Hyatt. Losing both of those guys have been evident, but I still think that when you look at the talent they have still on roster, they can be very, very competitive in that SEC and are never an easy out. So that's why you really don't see them drop that far. They played a good game overall, but they just kind of lost themselves in their identity midway through the game.
Tulane coming off a 31-21 win over Memphis. Pratt had over 250 passing yards in that one. He was over 130 rushing yards plus a touchdown. Good performance from them as well. As we look at number 20, Duke, another team in the top 25 for both football and basketball. Of course, trending downward a little bit, moved down 4 spots this week. And then Air Force, Austin, I know this is kind of the team of the week for you a little bit, and your kind of attention to detail on them. Break it down on Air Force and then maybe touch on Duke a little bit as well.
Yeah, so I mean, starting with Duke here, this was an expected loss. Florida State has been a well-oiled machine offensively, and it was the perfect result of giving up 38 points for a defense that's been stingy all season long. Getting the combination of Jordan Travis and Keon Coleman is never an easy task at hand. They are just a dynamic duo. And then looking at Air Force, I mean, once again, I don't think people realize the magnitude of them throwing 5 times in a game and still winning. It's incredible. The fact that they were able to accomplish that. They're a one-dimensional team. They love to run the football in creative ways and get guys out into space. Incredible. The fact that they're 19th in the AP poll and they are just continuing to roll moving forward.
Yeah, 17-6 win for them this most recent week. They had a ton of carries, ton of guys taking the ball on the ground. 18, we had Louisville. 17, we have UNC, another top 25 team in both basketball and football. And then Missouri actually finds themselves at 16 here. So we have a lot of movement kind of in this range, Austin. Louisville up 3, Missouri up 4 spots, and then UNC drops actually pretty significantly. It's kind of the week of the top quarterback prospects, both Caleb Williams and Drake May and their programs respectively, falling quite a bit this week. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I kind of want to highlight Missouri here. The fact that they have been so consistent throughout the course of the year. Obviously, they got one blemish on their record, but a player I do want to highlight is Luther Burden III, who has been on my radar now as a legit prospect for the NFL. He has been tremendous so far this season. Once again, he had 90 yards and a touchdown in this contest. Another team that was surprising. I mean, the fact that North Carolina had such a tremendous drop, the most dramatic drop that we had seen, aside from USC. But North Carolina has been so consistent under Mac Brown, and I don't expect that to really change here. But it was just kind of shocking that North Carolina, had lost in the fashion that they did. It was just kind of disheartening for fans.
Yeah, definitely was. We'll get into the top 15 now as we look at LSU. Austin, your Tigers playing pretty well here. They move up 4 spots. This most recent AP poll. And then when we look at 14, we've got Notre Dame, who of course, Notre Dame this year, I think they've had a pretty solid season for themselves. They do have a couple of losses. What's your thoughts here on the Tigers and the Fighting Irish?
Yeah, I mean, Notre Dame has been a fun storyline, and we knew with the fact of Sam Hartman coming into the building that things were going to change at the position. They've had some issues in recent years with quarterback play and consistency. Ian Book is the closest thing that they had to it, but Notre Dame's been impressive. Offensively, defensively, Sam Hartman has made this team look a lot different from that regard. You have a little bit more instilled confidence at the position. 15, with LSU, they were absolutely dominant this week in every single fashion. Mike Thomas had a humongous touchdown, and Jaden Daniels looked great as always. He is once again making himself a legit draft prospect. He's got a lot of career starts under his belt with the combination between Arizona State and LSU. He's a legit player. He's one that's developing as a passer, and I think he's actually going to start to get a little bit more buzz as we trend towards draft time.
Let's keep rolling here and going further into our AP Top 25. Utah, kind of the team of the week here at 13. Kind of surprised to not see them a little bit higher this week, honestly. And then we have Ole Miss at 12 and Oregon State at 11. Kind of what's your thoughts here, Austin? Break down what you're seeing between these programs.
Yeah, I mean, Utah, if you want to talk about a team that's showed a lot of consistency despite not having their starting quarterback, it's a true testament to the program, and I rave about them almost every single week about how impressed I am with their consistency on a week-to-week basis. Ole Miss, once again, it's the same story with Lane Kiffin and his ability to get the most out of his players. Judkins is a phenomenal running back prospect. He is fun to watch. And then Oregon State has just once again just shocked me. I mean, they just continue to impress me with where they're trending. And who would have thought that at this point in the year that the Beavers were knocking on the door of a top 10? I think both me and you would be surprised by that, considering all that's happened with this program. Not recruiting the best in terms of the national rankings in that perspective. They're not one of the big players generally at this time of the season when you are getting to a late October, but they have done it.
Especially given the fact they have to compete with Oregon in-state for some of those in-state recruits. It's a tough sell, right? But they've gotten the job done this year. Penn State, another team that has been getting the job done a bit this year. You see them at 10 here, dropping down actually 3 spots. And then as we move a little bit further up, we have Alabama there, who you highlighted a little bit earlier on, Austin. What's your thoughts here on the Nittany Lions and the Crimson Tide?
Yeah, I mean, Penn State, Ohio State was the game of the weekend. That was the highest anticipation, the most excitement, most buzz. And I think it was the tale of 2 different critical downs. So when you look at it from the Ohio State perspective, they were converting 6 of 16 on third down. Penn State was 1 of 16 on third down. I think that this is a true testament to some issues and maybe some development that Drew Aller is going to need to grow up with here. He's a young quarterback, playing in the Big Ten on a big stage, and they were having issues on third down. They were getting behind the sticks, and it was just forcing for a lot of passing downs. And really, they just weren't able to connect with consistency. In Alabama, with that 2-score victory over Tennessee was impressive. Now, the fact that they were able to, come back in that second half and, really turn it on, it's a true testament to this program and what we spoke about all season long. This is a top 10 level team, and they've been consistently actually ranked outside of that. So I think we're starting to, restore to the mean there.
Yeah, that's exactly what we had expected pretty much all year long after that early loss and kind of the poor play. Moving into the top 8, we see Oregon here. We highlighted them just a second ago, and then Texas as well. Texas coming off a 31-24 win against the University of Houston. That was big for them. Austin, talk about kind of the strength of Texas. Are we seeing them restore to the program we were used to seeing when they had Colt McCoy and some of those good old days for the Longhorns? And then Oregon here at 8. What's your thoughts on them as well?
Yeah, so looking at Texas and speaking on that, University of Texas is, quote, seemingly back. Now, I think with how competitive they've been over the last 2 seasons, it's been a true testament of the turnaround and what we can expect from them moving forward. I think the quarterback position has been key. Quinn Ewers is a fun quarterback and offers consistency, and they also have playmakers to match with that with Xavier Worthy, Jatavian Sanders. Those are 2 big play guys. And then looking at Oregon, they had a really nice week against Washington State. A player I do want to highlight is Bucky Irving, one of the best running backs in the entire nation. The Minnesota transfer once again ripped off 125 yards, 129, averaging 8.6 per carry. He has been the true catalyst and engine behind this offense, and Oregon is still rolling despite losing last week.
As we go into the top 6, I want to urge you guys, hit that subscribe button. We also have NFL Pick'em out every single week on the channel, NFL mock drafts, a lot of great stuff. And well, here we are with the Sooners, Austin, Oklahoma at number 6. Oklahoma's an interesting team. They come off a 31-29 win over UCF, what was near disaster almost here. Anytime you have a close win like that, it does cause some controversy. And then we also have Washington here at 5, who they themselves had a close win, 15-7 over Arizona State. Definitely not the best showing for either of these 2 programs against unranked opponents. They get out with wins. They stay in the top 6 here. How close are they really to being, real college football playoff legitimate teams?
I think one of these 2 teams are going to have a hiccup in the next probably 2 weeks. I think that once the cream rises to the top, there might be one of these 2 teams that ends up having that hiccup. Dillon Gabriel did just enough to beat his former team in UCF, and then Washington had a major scare, especially through halftime. People were sweating that one out. Coming off of such an exhilarating win against Oregon, people were mighty high on Washington. But now it kind of restores reality of what this team can really be. Maybe they are a top 5 level program, but right now they need to show it every single week, and that was a scary one for them.
Yeah, I remember a week ago they hung 36 up on Oregon. This week, only 15 on Arizona State. They got to go back to the well and figure out some of the things that went wrong this past week. And now we get into the top 4. This is really the most exciting part of the video. This is what you guys are all here to see. Number 4, Florida State. They had a nice win, 18-point win over Duke. Austin, we talked about that a little bit earlier on. Just how real is this Florida State team?
Yeah, Mike Norvell has been a game changer for the Florida State Seminoles. Jordan Travis, his consistency through the air, on the ground. Johnny Wilson had a really, really nice game. Keon Coleman actually was relatively quiet with only 54 yards, which is just funny to say because Keon Coleman is that much of a playmaker. 54 yards is a down game for him, but they just have so many playmakers on the perimeter. And Johnny Wilson's really got to get going. Had some early concentration drops at the start of the season, but now we are starting to see a little bit more of him playing at the level that he needs to be. So Florida State's the real deal. And so is number 3 with Ohio State. I do want to highlight Ohio State here because that was such a critical game against Penn State. Their backs against the wall. They prevailed defensively, especially on third down. This is a legit Ohio State defense who offers a lot of pressure on the quarterback and make plays on the back end of that defense.
Yeah, they did a great job. They held Penn State to only 12 points in that one. A really great showing from them, and really firmly holds them in the top three here over Florida State, who both had great wins this week. Honestly, just great play from the top four so far. And as we get into the top two, we see Michigan here. Michigan coming off of a good week as well, with a 49-0 win over Michigan State. Just honest domination. And when we talk about domination, it almost feels like a synonym to that is Georgia Bulldog football. They are just so dominant as well, Austin. These two programs, are they just the two best programs in the nation right now? Did they get it right this week?
Yeah. So the thing I do struggle with, if we're actually looking at quality of wins and how we feel about a program, I don't know if there's a better team in the country than in Michigan. And I generally don't say that, but every week that I've watched Michigan, they've been utterly dominant for the most part. They can run the football with Blake Corum, and JJ McCarthy has developed as a passer this past week. 4 touchdowns, no picks, 21 of 27 for 287 yards. He's a legit quarterback. And the fact that Michigan's defense is so stingy, I mean, they held Michigan State to 0 points. This is a real program. I actually think this should be flip-flop. I think Michigan should be number 1, Georgia 2, just based on the play I've seen so far this year. But of course, they will give Georgia the benefit of the doubt with how great they've been the last 2 seasons.
Yeah, Georgia always seemingly at the top of the AP top 25. But listen, Michigan has a legitimate case, like Austin saying. And look, we've got 6 teams right now at the top here that are undefeated. Any team here, any hiccup along the way could drastically shake these things up. So you have to make sure you're subscribed here to the channel so you don't miss out on future updates here for the AP Top 25. Make sure to leave a like on the video if you enjoyed. Ask Austin some of your questions down in the comment section, and we'll catch you guys in the very next Utility Sports video.